I took the MBTA job because I wanted the quiet. That's what I told myself anyway. 6 weeks of overnight maintenance work on the Green Line, down in the tunnels under downtown Boston where nobody could find me and nobody would try. The pay was decent enough for contract work, and the hours meant I wouldn't have to pretend to be functional during normal business times. Teresa kept the apartment. That was the short version. The long version involved a lot of lawyers and a lot of nights sleeping on my brother Aiden's couch until I couldn't stand his worried looks anymore. I moved into a studio in Somerville that smelled like the previous tenant's cat, and I stopped answering texts that weren't about work or logistics. The divorce finalized in September. I signed the papers in October. By November, I was looking for something that would keep me busy and far away from anything that felt like my old life. The tunnels made sense. I'd done electrical work for 8 years, mostly commercial buildings and the occasional residential nightmare where someone's uncle had rewired the basement himself and couldn't figure out why things kept catching fire. I knew my way around conduit and junction boxes. The MBTA posting said they needed someone who could troubleshoot signal systems and handle basic repairs on their overnight maintenance window. Temporary position. 6 weeks, maybe 8 if they needed coverage through the holidays. I figured that was perfect. Get in, keep my head down, collect the check, get out. Nobody goes into the tunnels unless they're running from something, or they just don't want to be seen. I was probably both. My first shift started at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday. I packed my tool bag the night before, double-checked I had my multimeter and my headlamp, then spent the rest of the day trying not to think about it. I'm not great at sitting still when I'm nervous. I walked to the corner store twice for no reason. I reorganized the 3 boxes I still hadn't unpacked. I ate cold pizza standing over the sink. By 10:15, I was dressed and ready. Work boots, thermal undershirt, flannel over that, my old Carhartt jacket that still had drywall dust in the seams. I looked like every other contractor in Boston. That was the idea. The Lechmere Yard sits up near the end of the Green Line, past all the tourist stops and the college bars. It's where they park the trains overnight, do the heavy maintenance, keep all the equipment that doesn't fit anywhere else. I'd driven past it 100 times and never thought much about it. Just another chain link fence and some floodlights. I parked my truck in the employee lot at 10:45. The gate guard checked my name against a clipboard, handed me a visitor sticker, and told me to wait by the maintenance office. He didn't make eye contact. I got the sense he'd seen a lot of temporary hires come through and didn't bother learning faces anymore. The yard was bigger than it looked from the street. Rows of green and silver train cars sitting quiet on the tracks, some with their doors open, some wrapped in tarps. There were work lights set up in a few places, guys in reflective vests moving around with clipboards and radios. The air smelled like diesel and cold metal and that specific subway smell I couldn't quite name. Oil, maybe. Brake dust. Old electricity. I stood outside the maintenance office for maybe 10 minutes before someone came out. She was short, solid build, wearing a vest with supervisor printed across the back in yellow letters. Dark hair pulled into a bun tight enough to make my scalp hurt just looking at it. "Blake Reeves?" she said. "Yeah. Pamela Ortiz, night supervisor." She didn't offer to shake hands, just pulled a folder out from under her arm and flipped it open. "You're cleared for signal maintenance and electrical repair, right?" "That's right." "Good. We'll get you set up and I'll walk you through the access points. You'll mostly be working the Green Line tunnel between here and Park Street. Sometimes Government Center if we need it." She glanced up at me, quick and assessing. "You claustrophobic?" "No." "Scared of the dark?" "No." "Scared of rats?" I hesitated. She smirked a little. "They're down there," she said. "You'll see them. They don't bother you if you don't bother them. Mostly." "Got it." She led me into the office, which was basically a glorified shipping container with desks and filing cabinets shoved into it. Fluorescent lights, concrete floor, a coffee maker that looked older than I was. She handed me a clipboard with about 6 forms on it and told me to sign everywhere there was a red tab. I signed. Liability waiver, safety acknowledgement, confidentiality agreement, emergency contact sheet. Standard stuff. I put down Aiden's number for the emergency contact because I couldn't think of anyone else who'd actually pick up. Pamela took the clipboard back, filed the forms without looking at them, and grabbed a cardboard box from under one of the desks. She dumped it out on the table in front of me. Hard hat, reflective vest, rechargeable flashlight, and a radio the size of a brick. Hat and vest stay on at all times when you're below ground, she said. Radio stays clipped to your belt. You'll be on channel 4. If you need something, call it in. If you hear someone else call something in, stay out of their way unless they specifically ask for help. Okay. You'll usually be working alone. Sometimes there's track crew doing tie replacements or rail work, but they'll be on a different schedule. If you see anyone else down there who's not wearing a vest and doesn't have a radio, you report it immediately. We get urban explorers sometimes. Idiots with cameras. They're trespassing and they're dangerous because they don't know what they're doing. I nodded. She handed me the vest and I pulled it on over my jacket. It was too big, hung loose around my shoulders, but I zipped it up anyway. The hard hat fit better. I clipped the radio to my belt and stuffed the flashlight in my jacket pocket. You'll enter through the emergency access stairwell behind this building, Pamela said. It connects to the service tunnel that runs parallel to the main tracks. From there, you can access any section of the line. I'll show you. We walked out of the office and around the back, past a row of dumpsters and a chain-link fence with a padlocked gate. Pamela had a key. She unlocked it and led me through, then down a narrow path between 2 buildings until we reached a metal door set into a concrete wall. It looked like a utility entrance. No signs, no markings. She unlocked that too. Inside was a stairwell. Just concrete steps going down into darkness, metal handrail bolted to the wall. The air coming up smelled damp and old. This goes down 3 levels, Pamela said. At the bottom, you'll hit the service corridor. It's marked. Follow the green line on the wall, and it'll take you to the main tunnel. Follow the red line, and it takes you back here. Don't deviate from the marked paths until you know the layout. Understood. She started down the stairs, and I followed. The sound of our boots echoed weird in the narrow space, bouncing off the walls. It got colder the further we went. I could see my breath by the time we hit the bottom. The service corridor was exactly what it sounded like. Narrow concrete hallway, pipes running along the ceiling, bare bulbs every 20 feet or so. The green line painted on the wall was about 2 inches wide, bright enough to follow even in the bad light. Pamela walked fast, like she'd done this 1,000 times and didn't need to think about it. We passed a couple of side doors, all locked. She didn't explain what they were for. Eventually, the corridor opened up into a wider space, and I could hear the tunnel ahead. Not trains, just the ambient sound of it. Air moving, water dripping somewhere. The hum of electrical current in the rails. "This is your main access point," Pamela said, stopping at another metal door. "Beyond this is the active tunnel. When you're in there, you need to stay aware of the schedule. Last train comes through at 12:45 a.m. First train starts at 5:30 a.m. That's your window. If you're still down there when the power comes back on, you're in trouble." "Got it. There's kill switches every 100 yards, red boxes on the wall. If you need to cut power to a section, you radio it in first, then you throw the switch. Don't skip the radio part. Someone else might be working nearby." "Understood." She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding something. Then she reached into her vest pocket and pulled out a laminated card, about the size of an index card. The edges were worn, like it had been handled a lot. "This belonged to the guy before you," she said. "Jonathan Sanchez. He quit about 3 weeks ago. Didn't give notice, just stopped showing up." I took the card. It was covered in printed text, small font, numbered lines. At the top, it said, "Tunnel Etiquette" in bold letters. "He left that in his locker," Pamela said. I was going to throw it out, but honestly, it's not bad advice. You should read it. I glanced down at the card. The first line said, "Stay on the catwalks. Don't walk the tracks unless you have to." "Is this serious?" I asked. Serious enough that he laminated it. Pamela's expression didn't change. Look, I don't know what his deal was. Maybe he was paranoid, maybe he just liked making lists, but he worked down here for 2 years and never had an accident. So I figure it's worth passing along. I flipped the card over. The back had more rules. Don't follow voices you recognize. Don't check the side passages after 2 a.m. If you see someone standing on the tracks, radio it in and leave the area. Some of this is just safety stuff, Pamela said. Some of it's probably superstition. Use your judgment. I pocketed the card. It felt heavier than it should have. "Any questions?" Pamela asked. "No." "Good. Your work order's on the radio. Check in when you're done with each task. I'll be upstairs in the office if you need anything." She turned and walked back down the corridor, her footsteps fading fast. I stood there in the cold, staring at the metal door that led into the tunnel, feeling the weight of the laminated card in my pocket and wondering what the hell I'd just signed up for. I left the yard around 11:30 that first night. Didn't work. Pamela said she wanted me to see the layout, read the materials, come back the next evening ready to start. Fine by me. The drive back to Somerville took 20 minutes. Streets were empty except for a couple cabs and one guy walking his dog near Union Square. I parked in the gravel lot behind my building, climbed the stairs to the second floor, unlocked the door to my studio. Cat smell hit me again. I'd bought those plug-in air fresheners at CVS, but they just made it smell like cat and fake lavender. I dropped my keys on the counter, pulled off my boots. The vest and hard hat sat on the kitchen chair where I'd left them. Radio, too. I plugged the flashlight into the wall charger Pamela gave me. Watched the little red light come on. The laminated card was still in my jacket pocket. I pulled it out, set it on the counter next to my wallet and a receipt from Dunkin' Donuts. Under the overhead light it looked normal, just a card. Worn edges, someone's handwriting in block letters. Tunnel etiquette at the top. I read the back again. Don't follow voices you recognize. Don't check the side passages after 2 a.m. If you see someone standing on the tracks, radio it in and leave the area. Probably some joke Sanchez had going. Probably something the guys passed around to mess with new hires. I'd seen that kind of thing before on construction sites. Fake safety rules to freak out the apprentices. Tell them the basement floods at midnight or the third floor has bad wiring that makes you hear things. Still, Pamela had handed it to me. She'd kept it from his locker. I left it on the counter and went to brush my teeth. My phone buzzed while I was rinsing my mouth. Text from Aiden. "You still coming Sunday?" I'd forgotten. Sunday dinner. He'd been doing that since I moved out of his place, trying to keep some routine going. I texted back, "Yeah." He wrote, "Good. Bring beer." I didn't answer that one. I set my phone on the nightstand and got into bed. It was just past midnight. My brain wouldn't settle. Kept replaying the walk down the stairs, the green line on the corridor wall, the sound of Pamela's boots fading away, the weight of the tunnel door I hadn't opened yet. I stared at the ceiling. Water stain in the corner shaped kind of like Florida. Eventually I slept. I woke up at 9 the next morning. Sunlight coming through the blinds in stripes across the floor. Took me a second to remember I didn't have anywhere to be. This was my schedule now. Sleep during the day, work at night. I made coffee in the little 4-cup machine I'd brought from the old place. Teresa didn't want it. She didn't want most of my stuff. I sat at the counter and drank it black, scrolling through my phone. Nothing important. Spam email. A text from a number I didn't recognize trying to sell me car insurance. Around 10:30, I heard Aiden's truck pull into the lot. Wasn't expecting that. I looked out the window and, yeah, it was him. Big blue Ford he'd had since before I got married. He knocked. I opened the door. "You look like hell," he said. "Just woke up." He came in without asking, glanced around the studio. "Still smells like cat." "I know." He sat down in the chair, the one with my work vest draped over it. He moved the vest onto the floor. "Figured I'd check in. You were weird last night." "I texted you back." "You texted 4 words." I poured him coffee in the only other mug I owned. "I'm fine." He took the mug. "So, what's the deal with this job?" "Maintenance, electrical, overnight." "Where?" "Green Line tunnels." He made a face. "Underground?" "Yeah." "You hate small spaces." "I don't hate them. I just don't love them." I sat on the edge of the bed. "It's 6 weeks, maybe 8. Pays decent." Aiden drank his coffee. He was doing that thing where he wanted to say something but was deciding whether it was worth the fight. I knew that look. We'd been doing this our whole lives. "What?" I said. "Nothing." "Just say it." He set the mug down. "You're taking weird jobs in weird places, that's all. It's the MBTA, it's not weird. You're working alone in train tunnels at 3 a.m. That's weird." I didn't argue. He wasn't totally wrong. "I'm just saying," Aiden went on, "you don't have to take every contract that comes along. You've got savings. You could wait for something normal." "This is normal." "Blake." "It's fine," I said. "I'm sleeping days, working nights. That's all I wanted to tell you, so you don't call me at noon and think I'm dead." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he stood up. All right. He headed for the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. "Sunday, don't forget." "I won't." He left. I heard his truck start up a minute later, gravel crunching under the tires as he pulled out. I didn't tell him about the card. Didn't mention Sanchez or the rules or the way Pamela looked when she said some of it was probably superstition. Aiden would have made it into a whole thing. He would have told me to quit before I started, and maybe that would have been smart. But I didn't want another argument about my choices. I'd had enough of those with Teresa. I finished my coffee, took a shower, killed the rest of the day watching something on Netflix I didn't pay attention to. At 9 p.m. I got dressed. Same boots, same thermal shirt, same jacket. I clipped the radio to my belt, grabbed the hard hat and vest, pocketed the laminated card. I drove back to Lechmere. The yard looked different at night. Fewer people. Same work lights, but they felt harsher, throwing long shadows between the train cars. The gate guard waved me through without checking the clipboard this time. I parked in the same spot and walked to the maintenance office. Pamela was inside, sitting at one of the desks with a clipboard and a styrofoam cup of something. She looked up when I knocked. "Reeves," she said. "On time." "Yeah." She stood, grabbed her own radio off the desk. "Before you head down, I need you to do something." "Okay." She led me past the desks to a smaller room in the back. Break room, I guessed. Microwave, mini fridge, table with 2 chairs, vending machine in the corner, and a security camera mounted in the ceiling corner, little red light blinking. Pamela pointed at the table. "Sit." I sat. She stayed standing, arms crossed. "Take out the card." I pulled it from my pocket, set it on the table. "Read it," she said. "Out loud. All of it." I looked at her. "Serious?" "Completely." I glanced up at the camera, red light still blinking. "You need this on tape?" "I need proof you were warned." Her voice was flat. "Read it." I picked up the card, flipped it to the front, cleared my throat. "Tunnel etiquette," I started. 1. Keep the vest zipped and sleeves down. Pamela nodded. Didn't interrupt. 2. Don't answer if the tunnel speakers say your name. That one felt heavier saying it out loud. I kept going. 3. Don't step onto a platform if the schedule boards show blank lines. My voice sounded weird in the small room, flat, recorded. 4. If you see a rider on the tracks, back away and throw a penny into the third rail. Pamela's expression didn't change. 5. If a white rat walks beside you, follow it until it stops. I set the card down, looked at her. That it? That's it. She uncrossed her arms. You have any questions? Yeah. Is this a joke? No. These rules don't make sense. They don't have to make sense. She picked up the card, handed it back to me. They just have to keep you safe. Or alive. Sanchez followed them for 2 years. He's the only night tech in the last 5 who finished his contract. I pocketed the card. What happened to the others? They quit. Why? Pamela walked to the door. You'll figure it out. She led me down the same path, past the dumpsters, through the chain-link gate to the unmarked door, down the concrete stairs, 3 levels into the dark. The service corridor smelled the same, damp, old. The green line on the wall glowed faint under the bare bulbs. We walked to the metal door, the one that led to the active tunnel. Pamela stopped, pulled a key from her belt, unlocked it. The door swung open and I felt cold air push past us. Heard the hum, the drip, the electric buzz in the rails somewhere ahead. Work orders on Channel 4, she said. Check in every 2 hours. Don't miss the last train. 12:45, I said. Good memory. She handed me the key. Lock it behind you when you're done. Leave the key in the office when you clock out. I took the key. It was warm from her hand. Pamela looked at me. You good? Yeah. Don't do anything stupid. Wasn't planning on it. She turned and walked back down the corridor. Her boots echoed, then faded, then stopped. I stood there holding the key. The tunnel door was open, cold air on my face. The card in my pocket felt heavier than it should. Again. This was grim hazing. Had to be. Some initiation thing the old guys did to the new hires. Read the spooky rules on camera. Walk into the dark. Come back with a story. But it was all I had. I put the key in my pocket next to the card. Pulled my flashlight. Checked my radio. Channel 4. Green light. Then I stepped through the door. Alone. I went through the metal door at 12:50 a.m. Pamela had left 15 minutes earlier. Said she'd be upstairs if I needed her. The tunnel stretched ahead, dark except for service lights every 30 feet or so. Yellow bulbs in wire cages. The catwalk ran along the right side, maybe 3 feet wide, concrete with a rusted railing that looked older than me. I kept the flashlight low. Pointed it at my boots first, then swept it across the catwalk. Wet concrete. Always wet down here, even when it hadn't rained in a week. The dampness came from somewhere else. Condensation, probably, or runoff from the street level. I didn't know enough about tunnel systems to say for sure. My work order said sensor checks between Lechmere and Government Center, junction boxes every 100 yards, indicator lights every 50. I was supposed to note which ones were out, which ones flickered, anything that looked corroded or loose, basic stuff. The kind of work I could do half asleep. I started walking. The catwalk had a slight give to it. Not unsafe, just old. My boots made wet sounds against the concrete. The tunnel smelled like metal and electricity and something organic I didn't want to think about. I'd been told about the rats. Hadn't seen any yet. Cable trays ran along the wall to my left, bundles of wire in metal channels. Some of it looked new. Some of it looked like it had been there since the Green Line opened. I knew the Green Line was old, 1800s maybe, or early 1900s, one of those. I passed the first junction box at 60 yards, gray metal housing bolted to the tunnel wall about chest height. I opened it with the flathead from my belt. Inside were terminal strips, wire nuts, a couple relays. Everything looked fine. I closed it and marked it on my clipboard. Box 1, no issues, kept walking. The tunnel curved slightly to the right, I could see the next service light ahead, maybe 40 feet. My flashlight beam cut through the dark between them, caught the rails below, the third rail with its yellow warning stripe. Don't touch that one. Couple 100 volts, enough to stop your heart. At 100 yards, I found the first indicator light. Red LED mounted on a post next to the tracks, supposed to show track circuit status. It was dark. I noted it on the clipboard. Light 1, out. The tunnel made sounds I wasn't expecting. Air moving through it, but not wind exactly, more like breathing. Big, slow breaths from somewhere deep. And water dripping, but I couldn't see where from. And the hum. Constant low hum from the rails, even with the power off. Like they remembered the electricity. I checked 3 more junction boxes. All fine. Checked 2 more indicator lights. 1 worked, 1 didn't. At around 200 yards, I passed a side passage on the left. Just a dark opening in the tunnel wall, maybe 6 feet tall. No light in there. No markings I could see. I remembered the card. Don't check the side passages after 2 a.m. It was 1:35 a.m. I kept walking. My radio stayed quiet. I checked in with Pamela when I first entered the tunnel. She'd confirmed, told me to radio again when I reached Government Center. That was it. Channel 4 had been silent since. The catwalk narrowed for a section where the tunnel wall curved inward. I had to turn sideways to get past a section where someone had stacked old railroad ties against the railing. They smelled like creosote. Teresa hated that smell. She'd complained about it when we drove past the rail yard in Everett once. Said it gave her a headache. I stopped thinking about Teresa. At 300 yards, I found a junction box with the door hanging open. The hinge had rusted through. I checked inside. Everything looked intact, but the open door wasn't great. Moisture could get in. I noted it on the clipboard, closed it as best I could. Box 6, broken hinge. Kept moving. I was maybe 20 minutes into the walk when I started feeling like the tunnel was bigger than it looked. Like the darkness past my flashlight beam went back further than it should. I knew that was stupid. The tunnel was whatever size it was. But I kept having the thought anyway. Another side passage on the right. This one had a chain across it. Old chain, links thick as my thumb. I didn't stop to look. At 400 yards, I checked another indicator light. This one flickered. On for 2 seconds, off for 1, on for 2. I watched it cycle 3 times to be sure, then noted it. Light 7, flickering. My phone said 2:13 a.m. That's when I heard it. The speakers. I didn't even know there were speakers down here, but I heard them click on with that little pop of static, the sound PA systems make when they activate, and then a voice. Calm, even tone, dispatcher voice. Blake Reeves. Pause. Blake Reeves. I stopped walking. The voice came from speakers I couldn't see. Somewhere in the ceiling maybe, or mounted on the walls past my flashlight range. It was clear. Professional. The kind of voice that announces delays and track changes. Passenger audio wasn't supposed to be active during maintenance shifts. Pamela had said the whole system was offline except for emergency channels. And even if it wasn't offline, even if someone had turned it on by mistake, the announcement wouldn't be my name. It'd be train information, station names, safety reminders, not my name, not twice. I stood there on the catwalk with my flashlight pointed at the wet concrete and my clipboard in my other hand. My heart was doing something fast and stupid in my chest. I wanted to answer. Wanted to say what or who is this, or I'm here. Basic human response. Someone calls your name, you answer. I didn't answer. Rule 2, don't answer if the tunnel speakers say your name. The speakers clicked off. Same little pop of static, then nothing. I waited, counted to 30 in my head. The tunnel did its breathing thing. Water dripped somewhere. The hum stayed constant. I started walking again. Tried to keep the same pace. Boots on wet concrete, flashlight low. I passed junction box 7 without opening it, realized I'd messed up, went back and checked it. Everything fine. My hands were steadier than I expected. I marked the clipboard. Box 7, no issues. Kept going. I checked 2 more indicator lights. Both worked, marked them. My handwriting looked normal. I focused on that. Focused on the clipboard, the checklist. The simple task of noting which lights worked and which didn't. At 500 yards, I found another junction box. This one had water damage, rust around the edges, corrosion on the terminals inside. I noted it, closed it, kept moving. My radio was still quiet. I was maybe 50 yards past the corroded box when I heard my radio click, just a click. The sound of an open channel, someone keying their mic without talking, then breathing. Not loud, not heavy, just steady breathing, in and out. The rhythm you'd have walking, maybe a little faster than resting, a little slower than exertion. I stopped, pulled the radio off my belt. The green light showed channel 4, active. I pressed the talk button. "This is Blake. Who's on this channel?" I let go. The breathing continued. Same rhythm. Didn't stop when I talked. I tried again. "Pamela? Anyone there?" Nothing, just breathing. I turned the radio off. The breathing didn't stop. It took me a second to understand. The breathing was still there. Same volume, same rhythm. But it wasn't coming from the radio anymore. It was coming from the speakers. The same speakers that had said my name. I stood there, listening to it. Steady breathing through the PA system, in and out, in and out. I started walking again because standing still felt worse. Kept the flashlight pointed ahead. Kept my boots moving on the wet concrete. The breathing matched my pace. When I sped up, it sped up. When I slowed down, it slowed down. Not exactly synchronized, close enough. Like someone walking beside me, adjusting their stride to mine. I checked junction box 11. Didn't need to. It was on my list, but I would have stopped anyway. Gave me something to do that wasn't walking. I opened it with hands that still weren't shaking. Everything inside looked fine. I stared at the terminals longer than I needed to. The breathing continued through the speakers above me. Still matched to walking pace. My walking pace, even though I'd stopped. I closed the box, marked the clipboard. Box 11, no issues. Started walking again. The breathing adjusted, picked up slightly, matched me again within 3 steps. I tried to think practically about it. Someone in the control room messing with me, first night hazing. Pamela had my schedule, knew where I was, could track my movement through the tunnel somehow. Cameras, maybe. Or the radio, even though I'd turned it off. GPS in the hard hat. But that didn't explain how they matched my pace so exactly. And it didn't explain why Pamela would do this after making me read the card on camera, after telling me some rules were safety and some were superstition. She'd seemed serious about both. I passed another side passage. Didn't look at it. The breathing stayed constant. In and out. In and out. I started breathing through my mouth so I wouldn't sync up with it. That helped. Made it feel less like the sound was connected to me. At 600 yards, I found an indicator light that was completely dead. Noted it. Light 12, out. The tunnel curved left. I could see the curve continue ahead into darkness past the next service light. Government Center was maybe another quarter mile. 15 minutes at this pace. I kept the flashlight low, kept moving forward. The catwalk stayed wet under my boots. The cable trays ran along the wall. The rails hummed below. And the breathing continued. Every step felt like I was being walked with. That was the only way to describe it. Not followed, not chased, walked with. Like something had decided to pace me, to match my rhythm exactly, to stay precisely close enough that I'd know it was there, but never see it. I thought about turning back. Pamela had said I could radio if I needed something, but I'd turned the radio off, and turning it back on meant hearing the breathing through the speaker clipped to my belt instead of through the tunnel speakers. Closer, right at my hip. I didn't turn back. I checked junction box 12. Fine. Checked indicator light 13. Flickering. Marked both. The breathing never stopped, never changed. Just stayed there in the speakers, paced to my stride, filling the tunnel with the sound of something invisible keeping time with my boots on the concrete. The tunnel curved again. I could see another service light ahead. 30 feet maybe. Every step forward felt like a choice the tunnel was making for me. How close to get? How long to keep the breathing synced? When to stop? When to change? I was moving through it, but it was deciding the space between me and whatever matched my pace through the speakers. I kept walking anyway. The breathing was still going when I saw the platform lights ahead. Not Government Center. Smaller station. Probably Science Park or Haymarket, hard to tell from the service side. The catwalk widened a little as the tunnel opened up into the platform area. I could see the glow from overhead fluorescents, that institutional white-yellow color that makes everything look sick. The schedule board was on. That stopped me for a second. The board hung above the platform, one of those old LED matrix displays the MBTA hasn't replaced yet. Green letters scrolling information for passengers who weren't there. Except the letters weren't scrolling. The board was lit up, fully powered, but every line on it was blank. Not dark. Blank. Like someone had erased the departure times but left the backlight running. I remembered Rule 3. Don't step onto a platform if the schedule boards show blank lines. The breathing in the speakers kept pace with my stopped footsteps. When I wasn't moving, it sounded different. Slower. Waiting. I stayed on the catwalk. The platform was maybe 8 feet to my left, separated by the tracks and the third rail cover. Service walkway continued past the platform on my side. I didn't need to cross over. Didn't need to step up onto that concrete edge under those blank lines. I kept walking. My boots made wet sounds on the catwalk. The platform lights spilled across the tracks, bright enough that I didn't need my flashlight for a few seconds. I could see the whole platform from where I was. Empty benches, tiled walls with faded ads for car insurance and community college. Yellow safety line along the edge, paint worn down to nothing in spots. No one there. The blank schedule board kept glowing as I walked past. I didn't look directly at it. Felt stupid doing that, like a kid avoiding mirrors in the dark. But I kept my eyes on the catwalk ahead and let the platform slide by in my peripheral vision. The breathing stayed synchronized, still matching my pace exactly. Then I heard the sobbing. Soft, wet sounding, coming from down on the tracks somewhere behind me, back near where the platform lights ended and the tunnel darkness started again. I stopped walking. The breathing in the speakers stopped too, right on cue. The sobbing continued. Quiet. Rhythmic. Someone crying in that exhausted way people do when they've been at it a while and can't stop anymore. The sound echoed weird in the tunnel, bouncing off tile and concrete so I couldn't pin down exactly where it originated. I should have kept walking. That was the smart thing. Radio it in like Pamela said. Get to Government Center. Let someone else deal with whatever this was. But if someone was actually down there, if someone fell, or climbed down, or got stuck somehow, I turned around. The platform was behind me now, maybe 20 feet back. The schedule board still glowed with its blank lines. The sobbing came from somewhere between the platform and where I stood, down in the track bed. I unclipped my flashlight and walked back slowly. The catwalk had a gap where it passed the platform, a section maybe 10 feet long where the railing dropped away entirely, and there was nothing between the walkway and a straight drop onto the tracks. I'd passed through it a minute ago without thinking. Now I had to lean over the edge to see down into the darkness below the platform lights. I clicked on my flashlight and aimed it between the rails. The beam caught something crouched about 15 feet down the tracks from the platform edge. Man-shaped. Hunched over with its back to me, wearing what looked like dark clothing. The sobbing was coming from it. "Hey, I called. My voice sounded flat in the tunnel. "You all right?" The sobbing stopped. The figure didn't move for a second. Then it started to turn. Slow. Too slow, like it was savoring the moment or had forgotten how to do it quickly. The flashlight beam stayed on it as it rotated, showing me shoulders, then a profile, then the full face. No eyebrows. That's what I noticed first. The face was smooth, where eyebrows should have been, just unbroken skin. The eyes were open, but they didn't catch the light right. No shine to them. They looked flat, matte, like someone had molded a face out of plastic or clay and pressed glass beads in for eyes, but never got them to sit properly. The mouth was closed, small. The proportions were almost right, but something about the spacing was wrong. Everything just a little too centered or too symmetrical. It looked up at me. The eyes didn't blink. I backed away from the edge, not running, just stepping back carefully, keeping the flashlight on it. My brain was doing that thing where it tries to explain. Medical condition, maybe. Costume. Someone's idea of a prank, get in the tunnel in makeup and scare the new maintenance guy. That had to be it. Except it was still staring. Still not blinking. And I could see its chest now. No movement there either. No breathing. Rule 4. If you see a rider on the tracks, back away and throw a penny into the third rail. I was already backing away. That part I'd done on instinct. I shoved my hand into my jacket pocket, fingers searching for change. Quarter. I felt the ridged edge of a quarter. Something else, smaller and thinner. I pulled it out. Old transit token. The kind the MBTA stopped using probably 10 years ago. No idea why I still had it. Must have been in this jacket since before the divorce, stuck in the lining or a corner seam. No penny. The thing on the tracks tilted its head, still watching me. The small mouth hadn't moved, but I could hear breathing now, not from the speakers anymore, but from down there in the darkness, ragged, wet breathing that didn't match the motionless chest. Close enough. The rule said penny, but metal was metal. I threw the token toward the third rail cover. The sound it made when it hit was wrong. Too loud, too clear. Like the tunnel was amplifying it, turning a small metallic clink into something that rang out sharp and bright, echoing off every surface until it sounded like I'd dropped an anvil instead of a thin piece of brass. The crouched thing jerked toward the sound. Fast. Not slow anymore. Its whole body snapped in the direction of the noise, head whipping around with its flat eyes searching. Then it smiled. The mouth stretched. Wider than it should have been able to, corners pulling back past where corners should stop, opening into something that showed too many teeth, all of them the same size and color, flat and white like bathroom tiles. That smile wasn't confused, wasn't surprised. It looked pleased. Like being noticed was exactly what it wanted. Like I'd just done something it had been waiting for, hoping for. And now things could really get started. The platform lights flickered overhead. On, off, on, off. The whole station strobing for 3 seconds while the thing with the wrong face kept smiling up at me from the tracks, its neck craned at an angle that would have hurt a real person. Then the lights steadied, stayed on. I stood there on the catwalk with my flashlight in one hand and my radio clipped to my belt, turned off, useless. The laminated card was in my pocket, the card Pamela gave me with Sanchez's rules. Not hazing, not jokes. The rules were real. The rules were instructions. They were the only thing between me and whatever the hell was down in these tunnels after midnight, smiling with a mouth that didn't stop stretching. I understood that now, completely. The same way you understand that a stove is hot after you touch it, immediate and certain and too late to matter for the burn you've already got. The thing on the tracks kept smiling. The platform lights flickered once more, then held steady. I was still alive. That was something. The speakers crackled again. "Blake! Pamela's voice this time. Urgent. "Blake, pick up. I need you to respond right now." My hand went to the radio on my belt before I could stop it. The voice sounded exactly like her. Same clipped tone she'd used in the break room. Same Boston edge. I caught myself with my thumb on the power switch. Rule 2. Don't answer if the tunnel speakers say your name. I pulled my hand back. Stood there with my flashlight still pointed at the tracks where the figure was. It hadn't moved. Just kept smiling up at me with that bathroom tile grin. "Blake, please." The voice shifted mid-sentence. Became softer. Higher. "I'm worried about you." "Teresa." My chest went tight. I knew it wasn't her. Knew it couldn't be her because Teresa didn't have access to MBTA tunnel systems and wouldn't be calling me at 2:30 in the morning even if she did. We'd been done since September, but the voice had her exact inflection, the way she said my name when she was trying not to sound scared. I'd heard it 100 times during the divorce, during the fights before that. "You're not answering your phone," Teresa's voice continued through the speakers. "I texted you 3 times. Where are you?" I didn't move. The figure on the tracks tilted its head the other direction, still watching. "Blake, come on." Different voice now. Deeper. "Aiden. Pick up the radio, man. You're freaking me out." The system was cycling through them, trying different voices like someone flipping channels, looking for the one that would make me slip up and respond. I wondered if it pulled them from my emergency contact sheet or if it had been listening when I thought about them earlier. Either option seemed bad. "This isn't funny anymore," Aiden's voice said. "Call me back." Static pop. Silence. I waited, counted to 20. The figure on the tracks didn't move and the speakers stayed quiet. Platform lights flickered once but held. That was enough. I needed to get out. Radio Pamela from street level where the air didn't smell like wet metal and old electricity and things that shouldn't exist, didn't crouch on train tracks, smiling at maintenance workers. I could call in sick. Tell her I had food poisoning or a family emergency. Aiden would back me up if I needed him to. I'd lose the paycheck, but I still had some savings. And Aiden was right that I could wait for normal work. I turned away from the platform, kept my flashlight on, started walking back the way I'd come with the wet sound of my boots on concrete echoing in the tunnel. The breathing didn't start up again in the speakers. Neither did the voices, just my footsteps and the electrical hum in the rails and the drip of water somewhere behind the walls. The access door was maybe 400 yards back. 10 minutes if I moved fast. I picked up my pace. I passed the junction boxes I'd already checked without stopping. Past the side passage with the chain across it. The service lights overhead stayed steady in their wire cages and nothing moved in my peripheral vision. I kept the flashlight beam pointed ahead and didn't look at anything I didn't have to. The green line on the wall appeared at shoulder height, 2 inches wide. Faded paint, but still visible. I followed it back through the curve where the catwalk narrowed and past the stacked railroad ties that still smelled like creosote. My radio stayed clipped to my belt in the off position, and I didn't touch it. The access door came into view after maybe 8 minutes. Same metal door Pamela had led me through. Keypad mounted on the wall to the right at chest height, card reader below it. Red light above the handle showing it was locked. I stopped in front of it. Unclipped my badge from my belt where I'd attached it next to the radio. The badge had my photo and name and a magnetic strip on the back, and Pamela had demonstrated the card reader when we'd first come through. Simple. Scan badge, enter code, door unlocks. I held the badge up to the reader. The keypad display showed blank squares, not numbers, just empty white rectangles where the digits should be. 4 of them in a row, blinking cursor in the first square. I lowered the badge, looked at the keypad again, still blank squares. I scanned the badge anyway. The reader made a tone, not the quick beep Pamela's badge had made, a longer sound, lower pitch, almost disappointed, like I'd given the wrong answer to a question I should have known. Error showed on the display for 2 seconds, then back to blank squares. I tried again. Same disappointed tone. Same error message. "Come on," I said, out loud. My voice sounded flat in the tunnel. I punched the squares where the numbers should be. Tried the code Pamela had given me, 9472. The squares didn't respond. No feedback. No beep. Just blank white rectangles that didn't care what I pressed. I pulled the door handle. Locked solid. Behind me, the tunnel stretched back toward the platform and government center. Ahead was just the locked door and the keypad that wouldn't work, and the card reader that thought I'd failed some test. I was trying to figure out if I could force the door when something brushed my boot. Soft, quick, gone before I could process it. I stepped back, pointed my flashlight down. A white rat sat on the catwalk 2 feet from my boots. Not gray, pure white. Pink eyes and pink nose and white fur that looked clean. Too clean for something living in train tunnels. It sat on its haunches and looked at me. Didn't run. Didn't flinch when the flashlight hit it. Rule 5. If a white rat walks beside you, follow it until it stops. The rat turned and started walking down the catwalk. Not scurrying, not running, just trotting along like it had somewhere to be and expected me to keep up. It moved with the kind of confidence Aiden's old dog had. The one that used to walk itself around the block. I didn't want to follow it. I wanted to kick the door until it opened, or radio Pamela, or sit down on the catwalk and wait for first train at 5:30 when power came back and someone would have to come find me. But the keypad showed blank squares and the card reader thought I'd failed and the rat kept walking. I followed it. The rat led me past 2 service lights, past a junction box I'd checked earlier. It didn't look back to see if I was keeping up. Just maintained its steady trot with its tail straight out behind it for balance. We reached a place where the tunnel wall had a gap, 6 feet wide. Tiled cross passage I hadn't noticed on the way in. Old subway tiles, white with green trim. Faded advertisements on the walls inside. One for a bank that didn't exist anymore. One for a shoe brand I recognized from my dad's closet when I was a kid. The rat turned into the passage without hesitating. I followed. The passage was narrow, maybe 4 feet wide, tiles on all sides, single bulb overhead that flickered twice but stayed on. The ads were water damaged, peeling at the edges. Someone had written a phone number on one in marker, but most of the digits were smudged. The rat stopped. I stopped behind it, maybe 8 feet back. There was an alcove in the left wall, maintenance access or electrical panel or something, 2 feet deep. Concrete floor, no door. And on the floor in the back corner, someone had stacked pennies. Not scattered, stacked. Neat little towers, maybe 20 pennies total, all shiny, new looking. They caught the overhead light and reflected it back brighter than they should have. The rat sat down, looked at the pennies, looked at me. I understood. I stepped into the alcove, crouched down. The pennies were cold when I touched them, colder than the tunnel air. I picked up 3, one from each of the tallest stacks, slid them into my jacket pocket where they clinked against my keys. When I stood up and turned around, the rat was gone. Just empty passage, flickering bulb, faded ads, no white rat anywhere. I walked back to the opening and checked the main tunnel. Nothing. No movement, no sound except the electrical hum and the water drip. The pennies sat heavy in my pocket, heavier than 3 pennies should feel. I thought about Rule 4, about throwing a penny into the 3rd rail, about the figure that had smiled when I'd thrown the token instead. I didn't know what the payment was for. Didn't know if the pennies were meant to protect me or buy me something, or if following the rat had just been another test I'd barely passed. But I had them now. 3 shiny cold pennies that someone had stacked in a maintenance alcove in a cross passage under the city. And the white rat had led me here, and then vanished. And I was still alone in the tunnel with a door that wouldn't open, and voices in the speakers and something on the tracks that smiled with too many teeth. I stood there holding my flashlight, trying to figure out what came next. I walked back to the main tunnel with 3 pennies in my pocket that were too cold and felt wrong against my keys. The rat was gone. The passage with the tiles and old ads was still there behind me, but I didn't look back at it. Music clicked on. It wasn't gradual. 1 second the tunnel was just electrical hum and water drip. The next second something activated with a sharp mechanical click like someone threw a switch. Then music started playing through the speakers. Faint, scratchy, old recording quality, big band music maybe, something with horns and a rhythm section, the kind of thing you'd hear in a 40s movie. I didn't stop to listen closer. I started walking faster, boots hitting concrete harder, my flashlight beam bouncing with each step. The music stayed low, but it was everywhere, coming from speakers I couldn't see, filling the tunnel the same way the breathing had earlier. I figured it was another test. Another thing trying to get a reaction. The card didn't say anything about music, but the card also didn't cover half of what I'd already seen tonight. My tool bag rattled against my hip. I still had the clipboard in my left hand, even though I hadn't checked a junction box in 20 minutes. The pennies clinked when I moved, and I felt them shift in my pocket, warming up slowly but still colder than they should be. The music had vocals now. A woman singing something I didn't recognize. The words were in English, but too distorted to make out clearly through the speaker static. I kept my eyes forward on the service lights and the green line on the wall. Then I heard it behind me. Low rumble, metal on metal, getting louder. A train. I stopped and turned around, pressing my back against the tunnel wall where the catwalk widened slightly. The sound was coming from somewhere past the tiled passage, back the way I'd come. Getting closer, I could feel vibration in the concrete under my boots. That didn't make sense. Pamela said last train was 12:45 and first train was 5:30. It was maybe 3 a.m. now, probably a little past. No trains ran during maintenance window, that was the whole point. The rumble got louder. Then I saw it. The train came around the curve on the far track, the one across from the catwalk about 15 feet away. Except it wasn't on the far track exactly. It was on a track I hadn't noticed before, another set of rails running parallel that I would have sworn wasn't there when I walked this section earlier. No headlights. The front of the train was completely dark. No running lights, no destination sign, nothing. Just a black shape sliding forward with all that weight and momentum behind it. The windows were black too. Not dark because the interior lights were off. Black, like they'd been painted or covered with something. I pressed harder against the wall even though the train was on a different track and wouldn't come near me. Then I saw the faces. Pale faces pressed against the black windows, dozens of them, maybe more, all the way down the train as it slid past. They were inside somehow, pushing their faces against the glass hard enough that I could see the shapes of noses and cheekbones flattened against the surface. The train kept coming and the faces kept turning, all of them, in unison, every single face rotating smoothly to track me as the train passed, like they were on a mechanism, like something was controlling all of them at once to make sure they all watched me at the same time. I couldn't see eyes, just the pale shapes of faces, skin tone too light, features too smooth, turning in perfect synchronization as the train went by. The wind hit me. It wasn't normal train wind. It was too strong, too focused. It caught my vest and tugged hard at the zipper, pulling the fabric away from my chest. I felt the zipper give a little, sliding down an inch. I grabbed for it with my right hand, still holding the flashlight. Dropped the clipboard. It clattered on the catwalk, and I didn't care. I caught the zipper pull and yanked it back up fast, jamming it, forcing it through the teeth that had gotten misaligned. The metal zipper pull was sharp where the coating had worn off. It caught my index finger right at the tip, slicing through skin, quick and clean. I felt it happen but didn't stop, just kept pulling the zipper up until it hit the top and my vest was closed again. My finger throbbed. I looked down and saw blood welling up fast, more than a little cut should produce. It ran down my finger and soaked into my sleeve before I could do anything about it. The thermal fabric absorbed it immediately, spreading dark and wet. The train was still passing, still more faces turning to watch. I pressed my bleeding finger against my sleeve, applying pressure, but the blood kept coming. It soaked through, and I felt the wetness against my wrist now. Then I felt something else, under the fabric, against my skin, cold pressure. Not from the outside, from the inside, like something was underneath my sleeve with my arm, pressing against the wet fabric from below. Small pressure points, multiple, moving slowly, fingers, small fingers, searching. I could feel them distinctly now, maybe 3 or 4 of them, thin and cold, pressing against my skin through the blood-soaked thermal fabric. They moved along my wrist, testing, prodding, looking for something, looking for a vein. I yanked my arm away from my body and shook it hard, whipping my wrist back and forth. The pressure stopped immediately. I pulled up my sleeve with my other hand, flashlight clamped under my arm. Just my skin, just blood from the cut on my finger running down to my wrist. Nothing else. The train finished passing. The last car slid by and disappeared into the tunnel toward Government Center. The rumble faded. The music was still playing through the speakers, but quieter now, barely audible. I left the clipboard on the catwalk and ran. Not jogging, running, full speed. My boots slammed concrete, and my flashlight beam jerked wildly, and my tool bag banged against my hip hard enough to bruise. I didn't care. I ran back the way the rat had led me, past the tiled passage, past junction boxes and service lights, following the green line. My vest was zipped. I checked it twice while running, grabbing the zipper pull and making sure it was all the way up. It was. My sleeves were down. I yanked the left one down farther, covering my wrist completely, even though blood was still seeping into the fabric. I ran for maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3, long enough that my breath came hard and my legs started burning. Then I saw a door, metal door set into the left wall, painted gray. Sign mounted at eye level in faded letters, Signal Room A. I'd never seen it before. I'd walked this section twice tonight and it hadn't been there, but it was there now, and I didn't question it because the alternative was keep running through the tunnel with music playing and no idea what else was coming. I grabbed the handle, expected it to be locked. Every door down here was locked unless Pamela opened it first. It swung open, just like that. No resistance. Handle turned and door opened inward on hinges that didn't squeak. I went inside and pulled the door shut behind me. It closed with a solid metallic sound. I leaned against it, breathing hard, and looked around. The room was maybe 10 feet by 12 feet. Concrete floor, concrete walls, no windows. A work lamp sat on a metal table in the center, already on, casting harsh white light. The kind of battery-powered LED work lamp contractors use, electrical panel on the far wall with the cover closed, rolling office chair with a torn seat, filing cabinet in the corner, and my clipboard sitting on the table next to the work lamp. The same clipboard I'd dropped on the catwalk 2 minutes ago when the train passed. Same battered metal clip. Same work order page with my handwriting where I'd noted junction boxes and indicator lights. Just sitting there. I was still holding my flashlight. I checked my hands. Flashlight in left hand, right hand empty, except for blood on my index finger. No clipboard. I looked at the table again. Still there. I walked over slowly and picked it up. It was real. Solid weight. I flipped through the pages and saw my notes, my check marks, times I'd written in the margins. This was mine. This was the clipboard Pamela gave me. Then I saw the CCTV monitor. It sat on a shelf mounted to the wall above the filing cabinet. Small screen, maybe 9 inches. Black and white display. The image showed the doorway I'd just come through. View from inside the room looking out at the door. Except the door was open in the image. and I was standing in the doorway with my back to the camera. I looked down at myself. My vest was zipped all the way up. My sleeves were down, covering my wrists. I looked back at the monitor. The version of me on screen had his vest hanging open, unzipped, and his sleeves were pushed up past his elbows, both arms bare. Breaking Rule 1, on camera. I checked myself again. Zipped. Covered. I ran my hand down the zipper to make sure. Completely closed. The image didn't change. The me on screen just stood there in the doorway, vest open, sleeves up. Like I'd walked in here after already breaking the rules. Like there was proof, now. Something was trying to create evidence that I'd failed. I stared at the monitor and understood. Whatever was down here, it didn't just want to scare me or hurt me. It wanted documentation, proof. It wanted a record showing I'd violated the rules, so what happened next would look like my fault. I was still zipped, still covered. But the camera showed different. The work lamp hummed. My clipboard sat on the table. Blood from my finger had stopped flowing, but my sleeve was still wet. I stood in Signal Room A and realized I had no idea how to get out. The speakers crackled again while I stood in the signal room with my back against the door. I heard my name. Blake Reeves. Soft. Persistent. Not loud or urgent. Just patient, like someone who had all night. Blake Reeves, please respond. I moved to the far wall where I'd seen the emergency intercom during my first scan of the room. Red metal box mounted at chest height. Flip-up cover with instructions printed inside. I opened it and found a black handset on a coiled cord and a single red button labeled Emergency Dispatch. I pressed the button and lifted the handset. Static hissed in my ear. I waited for a tone or a voice. "This is Blake Reeves," I said. "I need to report a trespasser in the tunnel between Lechmere and Government Center. Possibly multiple trespassers. Request immediate." The speakers cut me off. My own voice came through. Not similar. Not close. Exact. My voice said, "Everything's fine down here." I stopped talking and lowered the handset a few inches from my ear, staring at the speaker mounted in the ceiling corner. The voice continued in my flat tone with my Boston edge, the same cadence I'd just used. "No issues to report. Finishing up the checklist now. Should be done in an hour." I raised the handset again. "That's not me. I didn't say that. Someone's in the system." Static answered. Then my voice again, calmer this time. "Blake Reeves confirms no assistance needed. Continuing standard maintenance protocol." I pressed the red button 3 more times. Each time I got static, then my own voice repeating variations of the same message. "Everything's fine. No problems. Don't need help." The system had decided the fake version of me was preferable. Easier. Less complicated than whatever I was actually reporting. I hung up the handset and let the cover drop shut. The speakers went quiet, but I could still hear the faint hum of the electrical panel across from me. I turned my attention to the panel. Gray metal door with a simple latch, no lock. I opened it and found 2 rows of breakers labeled in faded marker. Lights, CCTV, intercom, Signal A, Signal B, AUX power. Most were in the on position. I grabbed the main breaker at the top, a double-width switch, and flipped it down. The room didn't change. The LED lamp on the table stayed bright. The CCTV monitor kept cycling through its 4 camera feeds. The hum continued. I flipped the main breaker up and down twice more. Nothing. I tried individual breakers next, flipping lights and CCTV and intercom off one by one. Everything stayed powered. The lamp didn't even flicker. I closed the panel door and stepped back. My flashlight beam had been getting weaker for the past few minutes. I noticed it now. Dimmer, more yellow than white. I tapped it against my palm. The beam guttered and died completely. I clicked the power button 3 times. Nothing. My jacket pocket lit up. Not a glow. Actual light. Bright white screen light shining through the fabric. I reached in and pulled out my phone. The screen showed an incoming call. No name. Just a number. My own number. The exact 10 digits I'd had for 3 years. The same number I gave to Aiden and Pamela and the gate guard. I dropped the phone. It hit the concrete floor face up and kept ringing. The screen pulsed with each ring. I watched it from 3 feet away, my hand still hanging in the air where I'd released it. The ringing sounded too loud for the small speaker. It filled the room the way the breathing had filled the tunnel. I didn't pick it up. After 8 rings, it stopped. The screen went dark. I waited 30 seconds, then crouched and reached for it. Before my fingers touched it, I felt something shift behind me. Not a sound, not movement I could hear, just a change in pressure, the sense of space being occupied when it hadn't been a moment before. I froze in my crouch, hand extended toward the phone. I didn't turn around. I looked at the CCTV monitor instead. It was cycling to the 4th camera angle, the one that showed the interior of the signal room from the corner mount near the ceiling. I saw myself crouched near the door. I saw the table with the lamp. I saw the filing cabinet. And I saw an outline pressed close behind me. Tall. My height. Shoulders my width. It stood 6 inches from my back with its head tilted forward, mouth near my ear. The outline was blurred on the monitor like the camera couldn't quite focus on it. The mouth moved. I heard Pamela's voice in my ear, close enough that I felt breath. "Blake, you need to come upstairs now." I stayed frozen. Didn't move, didn't answer. The mouth kept moving and the voice changed to Teresa's. "Why won't you talk to me? I'm trying to help." Then Aiden's. "This isn't funny anymore. Call me back." Then my own voice. "Everything's fine down here." It was cycling through them, every voice it had used in the tunnel, trying each one to see which would make me respond. I watched the monitor. The outline's mouth moved in perfect sync with the words. I started to edge toward the door, slow, inches at a time. My boots scraped concrete. Cold pressure clamped down on my left wrist, not from outside my sleeve, from underneath, inside the fabric. The same thin fingers I'd felt after the train passed, but stronger now. More of them. They wrapped around my wrist and squeezed, then started pulling. Not pulling my arm, pulling at my skin, trying to peel it back from the wrist up, like opening a wrapper. I looked at the monitor again. The outline was stepping forward, separating from the wall, taking shape. It moved into the real room, into the space behind me that I could sense but refused to see. The shape solidified into something that looked like me. My build, my jacket, my hard hat. But wrong. The proportions were almost right, but the spacing was off, too symmetrical. The same wrongness I'd seen in the face on the tracks. It reached for my left sleeve, for the blood-soaked fabric, for the cut on my finger that hadn't stopped bleeding. I shoved my hand into my right jacket pocket and grabbed the 3 pennies. They were still cold, colder than before. Cold enough that they burned. I turned and threw them across the room toward the electrical panel. Not at the panel. At the conduit running along the wall next to it. A thick metal pipe I'd noticed earlier, carrying cables from the panel down through the floor. Pamela had mentioned the 3rd rail feed during orientation, how the signal rooms tied directly into it for backup power, how you didn't touch the conduit unless you wanted to die. The pennies hit the conduit and stuck. The thing that looked like me lunged after them. It moved faster than anything should move. Crossed the room in less than a second with its hand outstretched, fingers spread wide. It grabbed for the pennies and made contact with the conduit. The spark was blue-white and loud enough that I felt it in my chest. The thing convulsed, jerking backward with its arms still extended. Its mouth opened too wide, and I saw the same flat tile teeth. Smoke rose from where its hand touched metal. It didn't let go. It couldn't. The current held it there for 3 seconds that felt longer. Then the room went dark. Actual dark this time. The lamp died. The monitor died. The hum stopped. I heard something hit the floor across the room. Heavy, solid, wrong sounding. I stood in complete darkness and didn't move. A soft scratching sound started near my boots. I looked down and saw two small points of pink light. Eyes. The white rat sat on the floor between my feet, looking up at me. It turned and walked toward the door. I followed it. The door opened when I pushed it. I didn't question that. The rat led me into the tunnel, which was darker than before. Half the service lights were out now. It moved fast, and I jogged to keep up, my boots echoing on concrete. We passed junction boxes and side passages, and the curve where the catwalk narrowed. The rat took a left turn I didn't recognize into a passage I hadn't seen. The passage sloped upward. Concrete gave way to tile, then to painted cinder block. The air changed. Less stale, less electric. I saw light ahead, not work lights. Daylight. The rat stopped at the bottom of a metal staircase and sat down. I looked up and saw sky through an open grate 20 steps above. Gray sky. Morning sky. I climbed the stairs and pushed the grate aside. It wasn't locked. I pulled myself up and out onto pavement and stood in an alley behind a building I recognized. The JFK Federal Building near City Hall Plaza. I turned to look back at the grate, but it was just a storm drain. Standard city infrastructure. The rat was gone. I pulled out my phone. The screen was cracked from when I dropped it, but it still worked. I found Pamela's number in my recent calls and pressed it. She answered on the 4th ring. "Yeah? It's Blake," I said. My voice sounded rough. "Blake Reeves, from the overnight crew." "Blake, it's 6 a.m. What's wrong?" "You paged me," I said. "Multiple times. Through the tunnel speakers. You said to come upstairs." Silence. Then, "I didn't page you. I've been off shift since midnight. Went home at 12:15. I leaned against the brick wall behind me." "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure. I'm in my apartment in Dorchester, been asleep until you called. What happened down there?" I didn't answer that. I said, "I'm done, I'm not going back." "Okay," she said. No argument, no questions. "Drop your badge at the main office whenever. They'll process you out." She hung up. I walked to my truck. It took 15 minutes and I kept my hand on my keys the whole time. The cut on my finger had stopped bleeding, but my sleeve was still damp. I got in and drove to the Dunkin' on Cambridge Street that stays open all night. I parked under a streetlight and went inside. The place was empty except for the clerk behind the counter. Her name tag said Molly. She was young, tired-looking, with light brown hair and a ponytail. I ordered coffee and a plain donut and sat in the corner booth where I could see the parking lot and the street. Molly watched me from behind the counter, not staring, just checking every few minutes like she was making sure I was still there and hadn't done anything weird. I probably looked rough. Blood on my sleeve, concrete dust on my pants. I drank the coffee and waited for the sun to come up. It took an hour. The sky went from gray to pale blue and the streetlights turned off. Traffic picked up on Cambridge Street. I felt better with daylight. Not safe. Just better. At 8:30, I drove to the MBTA administration building in Charlestown. I waited in the lobby until 9 when the offices opened. A guy at the front desk directed me to employee services on the 2nd floor. Matthew Wilkins sat behind a desk with a nameplate and a cup of pens. He was stocky, older, with thinning gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. I unclipped my badge from my belt and set it on his desk. "Blake Reeves," I said. "I'm ending my contract early." He picked up the badge and turned it over. "You've got 4 weeks left." "Yeah." "Any reason?" "Personal," I said. He nodded and typed something into his computer. "You'll get paid through yesterday. Last invoice goes to accounts by end of week." "That's fine." He dropped my badge into a drawer and that was it. I didn't try to convince him, didn't explain. He didn't ask. I got a check 2 weeks later. Direct deposit from MBTA payroll. processed by someone named Cindy Stevens, according to the email notification. Full amount for the nights I'd worked. No deductions, no questions. I kept one of the pennies, not the ones I'd thrown. I never saw those again. But I'd had change in my pocket that morning, and one of the pennies felt colder than the others. I put it on my keychain with my truck key and apartment key. The old transit token I spent the same day. Dropped it in a charity jar at a gas station so it couldn't follow me. I don't know if that logic made sense, but it felt right. I went back to residential electrical work, small jobs, outlets and ceiling fans and panel upgrades. I got offers for commercial work in office buildings with basements. I turned them down. A guy I knew asked if I wanted to help run cable in the subway expansion project near Tufts. Good money. Union benefits. I said no. I don't do underground work anymore. That's just how it is now.